I'm Susan.
I'm Dinushka. Baking is one of my biggest passions.
I love mixing and matching flavors.
It is something that brings me a lot of joy.
Everything I prepare is free of artificial flavoring and coloring.
We want to share these bakes with as many people as possible. Welcome to this episode of Homemade.
Hope you enjoyed this episode today. I never imagined I was going to be a baker myself. And honestly speaking, I don't even know how I got here. Everything I prepare is free of artificial flavoring and coloring, and making my customers happy is what keeps me going. Hi guys, I'm Susan from Cravings by Sue, and today I'll be showing you how to make the traditional love cake. Okay, so what we'll be using for the traditional love cake is 250 grams of cashew, 250 grams of pumpkin preserve, and 250 grams of sugar. And we've got 125 grams of semolina here. We need to roast this semolina for the cake, and we've got 75 grams of butter, 6 egg yolks, and 3 egg whites. For the flavoring, we use half a lime or orange rim, vanilla, rose, pure bees honey, and cinnamon powder. Firstly, we need to roast the semolina. So it's best to actually roast it in a non-stick pan. You put the semolina into the pan and roast it until it's light brown. Once the semolina is roasted and cooled down, what we do is we add the egg yolks, the 6 egg yolks, into our beater, and the 250 grams of sugar, powdered sugar actually. We start mixing this on low for about a minute. After about a minute or two, you off the beater and you scrape the sides just to make sure all the sugar and the egg is incorporated. And then you beat it on medium speed for another 2 or 3 minutes. Meanwhile, what we can do is we can actually grate a little bit of the orange rim. This is mainly to enhance the flavor of the love cake. Just a teaspoon would do so. You can add this and the cinnamon. It's just a teaspoon of cinnamon powder, and also the essence, which is the rose essence, just a tablespoon. That's about 1.5 teaspoons, and the same of vanilla, 1.5 teaspoons. Also at this point we can add the bees honey. Make sure you get good quality bees honey, because that's where the flavor blends in and it gives a very rich taste to the cake. Then you blend it for another, beat it actually for another 2 to 3 minutes. After about 2 to 3 minutes, what you do is you add the semolina mix, which is the semolina and the butter into it. Beat it for about another minute on medium. Once it's all incorporated, what you do is you need to add the cashew and the pumpkin preserve to it. That's 250 each. And mix it until it's incorporated. Then you add the egg whites to it. And let it beat for another 2 minutes. Hi, I'm Susan.
I'm Dinushka. Baking is one of my biggest passions.
I love mixing and matching flavors.
It is something that brings me a lot of joy.
Everything I prepare is free of artificial flavoring and coloring.
We want to share these bakes with as many people as possible. Welcome to this episode of Homemade.
Hope you enjoyed this episode today. I never imagined I was going to be a baker myself. And honestly speaking, I don't even know how I got here. Everything I prepare is free of artificial flavoring and coloring, and making my customers happy is what keeps me going. After 2 minutes, you off the beater. And then you scrape down all this yummy dough and scoop it off the corners. And then it's ready to bake. So we need a lined baking tray. This is actually a 9-inch, and it's a 9-inch tray. And you pour all the batter to it. See, this cake doesn't rise up. It's a heavy cake, so you don't have to worry about saving space for it to rise up. You just bake it and it will not come up. So that's our love cake dough. We need to bake this at 120 to 150 degrees Celsius for about 2 to 3 hours. So this love cake baked for 2.5 hours, and now it's ready to be served. I actually kept it out for about an hour to cool it down a bit, so I can lay it on the plate and show you guys. So let me take it out. You can see how gooey it is from the back. And let's have a slice of it, yeah? You can see it's not too dry, it's very gooey, and that's mainly because of the pumpkin preserve. It has this lime or orange and nutty and cinnamony flavor into it, and it's very gooey. This is Susan signing off for Homemade. See you guys soon.
Baking is something I was introduced to from a very small age. My sister and I used to bake with our mother and our grandmother, and it was something that we did as kind of an activity to keep us occupied as children. So we used to bake cookies with our grandmother and also help Ammi when she was baking cakes, and eat most of the batter most of the time. So that was something that we were introduced to, as I said before, from a very early age, and it's something that we loved from a very early age, and something which has now grown into one of my biggest passions, and also it's something I do with my sister as well. So together it is one of our biggest passions. Hi, I'm Dinushka from Bola's Bake Shop, and welcome to this episode of Homemade. Today I will be making a very simple cake. It's called a lemon drizzle cake. Kind of in the form of a tray bake, something you can use for tea time. So you just bake it on a flat tray so that you can cut it into little squares, and that's a tray bake. So for this recipe we need just the staples. So there's 225 grams of butter, 225 grams of sugar, 275 grams of plain flour. There's 4 eggs, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and we need 4 tablespoons of full cream milk, and also a lemon which I've picked from my garden. So first we are going to take the butter and put it into this bowl. So I'm going to use my spatula and just make sure I get everything in, and I'm going to just cream that butter with my hand mixer. So make sure you beat your butter well. Just make sure that it's slightly lighter in color than it originally was. And to this I'm going to add my sugar, white sugar. So I'm just going to add it all in one go, and I'm going to beat that in. So that's your butter and sugar beaten together. So at this point just make sure you scrape down the sides and get everything in there nicely. And to this we're going to add the 4 eggs. We're going to add the eggs in stages. So I'm just going to add 2 of the eggs first, and then I'm going to beat it. And then I'm going to add the other 2 eggs.
Hi, I'm Susan.
I'm Dinushka. Baking is one of my biggest passions.
I love mixing and matching flavors.
It is something that brings me a lot of joy.
Everything I prepare is free of artificial flavoring and coloring.
We want to share these bakes with as many people as possible. Welcome to this episode of Homemade.
Hope you enjoyed this episode today.
So make sure your eggs are nicely incorporated. And once more, we're going to just scrape down the sides a bit. Now I am going to add the flour. So make sure you've sifted your flour before adding it. So that's all the flour going in there. And then I'm also going to add in the 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So at this point, I'm just going to mix in the flour before I beat it. So once you add the flour, make sure you don't overbeat your batter. So just give it a rough mix. And then just scrape it off. Try not to spill too much like I do. And then just use your hand mixer again and just lightly mix it in. So I've reduced the speed of the hand mixer after I added my flour. And to this, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of milk. So just measure out your milk. You don't have to be too precise, we're just trying to thin the batter out a bit before it goes in the oven. So that's 4 tablespoons of milk. And if you feel like your batter is still a little too thick, you can just add in another tablespoon. So again, the speed is on a lower speed. Mix that in. And finally, we're going to add our lemon rind. So I'm just going to take the lemon and just grate the rind right in. So it's easy if you have a grater like this, then you can just grate it over. So make sure you just get the yellow part and don't go too much into the white part of the lemon rind. So make sure you just grate the whole lemon in so you get that nice fresh lemon flavor. So to be very light with it so that you don't get the bitter part of the lemon in. This is a nice light cake which is ideal for tea time. So again, this cake you can substitute the lemon and use passion fruit, or even if you like you can use a bit of strawberry. Just make sure you don't mess around with the consistency too much. So I'm just going to mix that in. So we're not going to use the juice of the lemon at this point. Once the cake comes out of the oven, we're going to mix lemon juice and sugar mix and kind of drizzle it on top, hence the name lemon drizzle cake. So I think that has been mixed in, and I've lined this tin over here. So make sure you've lined it with some baking parchment, and I've used my canola spray, and I am going to put this in now. So make sure you scrape down the sides and get all your batter in. That's all your batter. Just scrape down the sides if you like. Make sure you've got all the good stuff. And then just evenly spread it out. And now this goes into the oven. I use a gas oven, and therefore it's on gas mark because it's a pretty thick batter. If the batter was a little runnier, then you could go for a gas mark 3, which is recommended. So I'm going to be using gas mark 2, which is 150 Celsius and 300 Fahrenheit. I think that's good enough. And this goes into the oven for approximately 30 to 40 minutes, but make sure you just keep checking it. You can either use a toothpick or whatever you have in the house, which you can use to check whether it's done. So this goes into the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes. So the lemon cake is out of the oven. So now's the time to do the drizzle, and as I said before, you can substitute the lemon with either passion fruit or even orange is really nice. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take this brush, dip it in the lemon juice. So that's the juice of about 1.5 lemons. And I'm just going to soak the top of the cake with the lemon juice. So it's easier to do it with a brush like this. So you can put more juice if you like, it just depends on your taste and how lemony you want it to be. So you should do this while the cake is still slightly warm, especially because we're going to then sprinkle some sugar on top. So it's as simple as that. So this cake serves around 20 people. So as I said before, it's called a tray bake, and you can just cut it into little squares like this. I'm just gonna cut off a small piece. Again, this is straight out of the oven, so it's very hot. So just be careful. The texture is beautiful, and you just get that little citrusy flavor from the lemon on top and the crunch of the sugar. So that's the lemon drizzle cake. It's as easy as that. And we hope to see you next time on Homemade. Thank you for joining.